Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into part 2 of the Eternals review episode. In this one, Ella and I will be reacting to and discussing your lot's thoughts about Eternals and also sharing ours. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for all your support and keep in tune for the next one coming out. Part 2 to the episode, we're going to react to all of your guys' last thoughts on Eternals. This is I asked on TikTok and I asked on Instagram for you guys to send me your last thoughts in. And so here we are going to be reacting to what you guys had to say about the movie in general. So first one I'm going to bring up, I'm just pulling this from the TikTok comments, is from TikTok. It's marvelously.kea. You guys should follow her. She makes some really cool content on there. But this is what she had to say. She said, before the movie, I honestly didn't know too much about the Eternals, so I didn't really have super high expectations. But the movie really blew me away with how they introduced every character, considering that we've never seen them before in the representation. I was finally so happy to see people who look like me in the MCU. But honestly, I agree with like everything she had to say. We have no idea who the Eternals are, and they did a pretty good job of establishing all of them and making us care about them. And yeah, this movie was a really big win for just representation in general, even though some people had issues with it. No, this was really great movie for just like representation in general. And I agree with every single point she hit. What about you?
No, I agree. I've seen it's so cool seeing everyone, like different people, be able to like connect to this movie. Like so many, like almost every different kind of person can like connect to one movie. Right. And it's cool being able to see that and be able to hear different people and how they connected and how they liked this movie because of that. I just think it was really amazing being able to see that.
Yeah, I like it was truly a global movie.
And I'm just really glad that it worked out that way, because it was just a global movie overall. So definitely agree with what she had to say. The next one is from also on TikTok, Alec, also one of my mutuals, and he said, honestly, love the movie. I wasn't expecting the twist in the story with Ikaris. Makkari stole the show for me. I love the chemistry between all of the actors on screen, and I love seeing the representation so much in the movie. And Chloe gave us some of the best cinematography and visuals in a movie. So yeah, again, I also wasn't expecting the twist with Ikaris. Like when I first went in, I thought maybe him and Cersei would make it out towards the end because they were kind of established to be like the main characters of the movie. And when I saw him fly into the sun, I was like, what? Wait, what is going on? And like, I didn't think he was dead until one of the writers actually recently confirmed in an interview that he is dead. And so then I was like, okay, like, I don't even know if we're ever going to be seeing him again. And yeah, Makkari, she's my favorite. I agree. She definitely stole the show for me and everything. He also echoed about the visuals and the cinematography. I'd also have to agree.
I have to agree with everything. I mean, Makkari, again, my favorite. I'm so glad she was portrayed the way she was, and she definitely did steal like everything she was in. I was like, yes. Yeah. Ikaris, definitely didn't see it coming. I have to say, when I saw the trailers, I did feel kind of odd about him. Like I was like, there's something I'm not seeing about him.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely did not think it would be this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it turned out amazing. And yeah, again, with Chloe, she's amazing. Her thoughts, her creative, her uniqueness, it's just everything she did in this movie. You can see like part of her in the movie.
Yep, for sure. This movie is it's a Chloe Zhao movie, like a lot of people have said, so I agree. Next thing, okay, so but Skylar also on TikTok, they were talking about, okay, so this is their thing. So to be honest, completely honest, going in, I didn't have high of expectations and I had no idea what to expect. I think I'd watched maybe one trailer, so they really had no idea who the plot was, but they still watched it and I'd say enjoyed it, but definitely didn't love it the first time. They said they rated it 7.5 out of 10. But then I went on Instagram and saw people talking about it and eventually just really started to love it. So then I went onto the theater, watched it again, and just fell heads over heels in love with it even more. I think what makes this movie so special is how complex every character is and how different every relationship is, whether it's platonic or romantic. Each character brought a different aspect to the film, and it was so interesting to learn about each character's backstory. Something else I also loved is the community this movie gave me, and just to talk with people about who love these characters as much as I do. Yes. And then they ended up with saying, this movie just means so much to me, and I'm eternally grateful for it. Yeah, I would have to agree. I feel like the same reaction that Skylar had, I feel like a lot of people had, in the sense that maybe the first time around they didn't enjoy it as much because this movie did throw so much the first time. Like, it threw so much at you and they may have just like felt overwhelmed. But then when you go and rewatch it the second time, like the movie grows on you because you kind of know what to expect. So you can enjoy like the individual character moments a little bit more, or like the individual dynamics and just like the shots and stuff. Like, you can appreciate the other parts of the movie because you're not so focused on trying to understand, you know, who the Eternals are and like the plot itself. So I would say like the way that Skylar felt, I feel like I also heard just a lot of other reviewers talk about it, is like, this is a movie you need to like rewatch, especially if you were unsure the first time. Like the second time around, I think like people said that they really enjoyed Eternals more because those small things you could focus on a lot more the second time. Yeah.
I think that's what makes it so special, is especially when she talked about after she saw it for the first time, she went to see it a second time because of what people were saying about it, like the good things. Because like I said before, it's just, it brings in like a whole diverse group of fans. Like,
Yeah.
and once no one's going to see it the first time and think the same thing as someone else.
Right.
Like, it's so much to digest and there's so much to see. And I think part of the beauty of the film is, like she said, the community that it made.
Yes.
Like how different people can show different people what they saw and what like the beauty. It's just, I think it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest things with Eternals I've noticed is that like the Eternals fandom is like its kind of own separate thing from the whole Marvel fandom in general. And it's because of that disconnect that Eternals has from the rest of the MCU. Like, because of that, like the Eternals fandom as a whole just feels separate, you know, because it's not really connected to anything in the MCU. And I think that's honestly that can be seen as a good thing for right now. Like, is that we can all enjoy in our own little space, like the Eternals, and still be a fan of the MCU. But at the same time, it leaves you these questions of like, when are we going to see them? When are we going to see the Eternals with the Avengers? I need all these, like, as we discussed before. So yeah, but definitely like get a separate community coming out of Eternals. Okay. The next comment is from and 324 other things on TikTok. And 324 said, I just love all the characters so much. I'm so happy we got a lead like Cersei, whose powers don't have anything to do with physical strength and fighting. I'm also so impressed by how well each Eternal was characterized, given there's 10. They were obsessed with Makari, Druig, and Thena and Gilgamesh are up there as well. And I appreciate and feel for them and love them as characters. Second viewing was essential to understand it, knowing at the end. I also feel like there's a lot of subtle / left to interpretation, which is not exactly normal to the MCU, but I love that about it. Themes are fascinating, keep me thinking. What they did with Thena and her condition was so surprising and refreshing for a goddess of war. But yeah, and then it's speaking of the physical battle, they're talking about Makari was amazing, how strong, love the use of ASL, and then talk about some of their issues, which is the big exposition dump. I still don't get what they're robots or what that means for them. Pretty minor complaints given, easy for me to overlook. Thoughts are a mess, but I think I got the important parts. Yeah, I think this person hit a lot of the things. Like, a lot of people had issues with the exposition, and I understand why. Like, it was a big dump, and again, they talked about how, you know, you need to see a second viewing, like, in order to understand it. Otherwise, this movie is like kind of not enjoyable unless like you were really hyped for Eternals. Like, if you were not that hyped but you were unsure leaving the movie theater how you feel about it, like, you need to have that second viewing. And honestly, their thoughts on characters, I agree with a lot of what they had to say about Cersei and Makari and Thena. Like, we talked about all of that, so honestly, like, pretty solid thoughts. Yeah.
lot of that thoughts from that person, like we all went over, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, because like I didn't read these. Like I just knew like people commented these, but I didn't really like get into the nitty-gritty of what they had to say
Yeah.
before reading this. And the fact that we hit most of them, like, like we were talking about like what does it mean for them to be robots? Like
Yeah.
do they need to eat? Like these small questions, like they sound
Yeah.
stupid, but it's like,
These small
I feel like they
questions
need
that
to be
like could
explored.
be really important.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's true. Let's see, what did the next person say? So I hope I'm pronouncing this right, but Saif Farah, let me see. They had to say about it. Okay, so they were like, I actually loved this movie and genuinely felt sorry for Sprite and Icarus. Did not agree with their actions, but still deserve better. Sprite was abandoned by Kingo because of her aged parents and lived in the shadow of Cersei, not being able to have happy or have a family. And Icarus couldn't be with Cersei because he cared for her. He didn't want to like her or break her heart, while others each found their purpose, and he just couldn't stand of the weight of the secret he had. Movie was one of the top tier MCU movies, thoughtful, sophisticated, visually stunning. And yeah, I think again, like we kind of hit all of these points with like Sprite and Icarus maybe didn't have the best course of actions, but you did leave the theater. Like if you think about their characters, like you did feel bad for them because they definitely like did not get to live out their lives that maybe they had imagined. And compared to the rest of the Eternals who did still, like they definitely struggled in establishing a life. Like Fastos, he had his own set of challenges, but at least towards the end, like most of the Eternals are able to find like some sort of peace, and Sprite and Icarus just weren't not able to until like the very end of the movie. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that the way those two were
Mm-hmm.
portrayed was cool because, like they were saying, we still felt bad for them, even though what they did was like could be like horrible, like, but we still felt connected to them, and I think that was cool.
Right. Okay. The next one, and these are from the Google form. So, the first one is Eternals was good. Critics were wrong about the movie, and people that haven't seen it yet. Yes, the critics were wrong. At least overall, the overall responses to Eternals was just too critique. Maybe I think the thing was like people had really high expectations for Eternals because they were like, oh my god, Chloe Zhao, and then when those expectations just maybe didn't match up what they meant, like they were a little too critical. But also a lot of the critics were straight white males.
Yes.
And the Eternals are not
was
all
not
straight
made
white
for
males.
them.
It's not made for them, exactly. It's made for the world, and the critics should have been reflecting that. I just think that shows like more about like the industry as a whole and how it needs to change. Like even reviewers,
it definitely needs to be more diverse.
Yeah. And the thing was like the lead wasn't even necessarily a straight white male. Like the lead was one of the leads was, but then there was an Asian woman who was in the lead. So like, why did the critics not reflect that? Is the reason why I think with Eternals, you cannot listen to the critics. You have to go watch the movie and form your own opinion, whether it be negative or positive after you've seen it. Like, you need to have your own interpretation of the movie because sometimes if things are not made for you, maybe you're not the best person to. The thing is, Eternals was still made for them because it's a global movie. It's just like, it's why are so many people of just one type reviewing the movie? That was the only issue because it was made for them. Like, it's a global movie after all, so technically anyone can watch it. But
that's just why I don't trust reviews.
Yeah.
Because it's just like the same person reviewing everything, and it's like I can't trust just one person. I need multiple different people.
Right. You need like different perspectives. I agree. Okay, next person said, first of all, how is it a month already? Anyways, last thoughts. I urge anyone who thinks Druig is a bad boy or compares him to characters like Loki and Bucky to really pay attention to his arc and his personality next time they watch. He isn't. He's probably the most caring Eternal who arguably cares the most about humans on Earth. He cares deeply for each of the Eternals, even Icarus at the end. Even if we compare it to outside characters, I compare it to the likes of Wanda, Sansa Stark, and Edmund heaven see. Overall, he's so complex. Cannot wait to see where they take his character in the future. I have thoughts.
Thank
and
you.
My thoughts are, I agree with half of it, and the other half, I'm just like, I don't know if it's slightly exaggerated, because I do agree with the fact that Druig is not like Bucky and Loki. You know,
A lot of people.
the Eternal that's most like Bucky and Loki, and I'm gonna like get flame, is Sprite.
Yeah, because she's like that kind of like sarcastic, like
Yeah,
cunning
exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
But
She's like that sarcastic trickster. That's literally what Loki would do. He would cast an illusion and then stab Thor behind the back. That's
Not to
literally what
mention-
Sprite did.
not to mention Sprite is 100% like gender fluid.
Yeah. Like it's like Sprite is most like Bucky and Loki, because Sprite is also like Bucky in the sense that like Bucky, after the whole thing, like in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we saw him that he looked younger than he is, and he was struggling to fit into society because of that. Like he was struggling, right? Because he's so attached to like sort of like how he grew up, that like fitting into like society, especially after like the whole thing he's been through as a Winter Soldier, like it's doable, but he was struggling with it. Like, you know, he had to go to the therapist and everything. Similar to Sprite, like she is obviously a lot more mature and older than she looks, but she still struggles to fit into society because of that, because she cannot have those same opportunities. And it's a little bit different for both of them, but like on a high level, like they have their similarities. And same thing with Sprite and Loki. Like Loki always struggled to fit in with his family. He felt like an outsider. Same thing with Sprite. I feel like she kind of struggled to fit into her family because she looks so much more younger than they all are, even if they all have the same shared experiences. So
I definitely agree with like the beginning about Druid, because I see a lot of people, especially when it comes to Makkari and Druid, saying like he's the guy who doesn't like anyone, and then the sunshine. But I'm like, no, do you not see like the breakdown he has in the like the beginning of the movie? Like he cares so deeply for like everyone. He just doesn't really show it, but you can tell he does.
Yeah. And I would say Cersei arguably cares the most about the planet and the other Eternals, just because of how she showed in the movie. But like Druid is definitely up there in terms of being like caring about the planet and Earth and all the other Eternals for sure. Like he even did care about like the rest of them towards the end. Like I just don't think he's comparable to Bucky and Loki. Just because they're dark hair, that does not mean they all fall into the same category.
Thank you.
Like so yeah, I would agree with what this person had to say. Like Druig is not like Bucky and Loki the way that people think he is. Okay, next one. This was a long one, but they said that I really love this movie. Top 10 MCU films. Got a little slow, but still enjoyable. The plot is something different from other Marvel movies, not being the same bad guy, good guys against formula. Characters were the best part of the story, and the way they're used in the movie and how different they feel from each other, but work together great. Chloe's also a visual aspect of the movie and a great reminder of me a bit of Guardians of the Galaxy and great use of CGI. They said Eternals gave them the new favorite MCU character, Icarus. Can't agree with him, but they did understand his motivations and feelings to realize the objective of his existence. One of the top 3 best written MCU characters, and his action scenes are so good. One of the most powerful MCU characters, top 3 with Strange and Wanda, which could be arguable. But they said Eternals is not perfect. There's a few mistakes. And this stuff I do agree with. Longer time to get to the plot, introduce some of the characters like Phastos and Makkari. And for Makkari, they were saying like she didn't even introduce Makkari. She's kind of just like, kind of hasty for Makkari. And the movie didn't introduce Makkari. She's kind of a respawn, and that's the point to make a mark, is the importance that's given to all of some other characters like Icarus, Sprite, and Cersei are the main characters, and the others are left in the background. Ajax is flashbacks. Gilgamesh is good, and his relationship with Athena have cute moments, but he was discarded too fast. Druig, Phastos, and Athena got interesting backgrounds, but the movie didn't focus too much on it. Kingo is the comedy relief, but you cannot love him. And Makkari is a lovely character, but she didn't do anything relevant, and her screen time is one of the shorter in the film. I honestly, I think what they meant by like relevant in the sense that like she did not serve much to the overall plot. Like the plot was mainly driven by like Sprite, like by like Cersei and like Icarus and like their relationship together. And like the other Eternals were there to like help. I think that's what they meant. Because I think like with this, I think they just wanted Makari to have more screen time and be introduced earlier. And I think it kind of goes back to the discussion we were having. Like, we don't really know too much about Makari's personality. We just know she's a speedster and that she can fight. But like, we don't really know that much about her personality or like what she's been doing, you know? Like, that's like, I think that's what, at least that's the way I interpreted this, was like, they wish they really saw more of Makari. Because she, like, we also didn't get to see her dynamics with the other Eternals except for Druig. And I think that was something they could have also explored. And maybe with Kingo, because I feel like Kingo and Makari definitely had some sort of friendship that we didn't see either.
Yeah, because like you don't have you have to have some sort of good friendship if you're gonna jump in front of a laser beam for each other.
Exactly, right? So I think that's what they meant, was just like Makari we could have seen more of her. Like, she was just introduced too late in the film and stuff. And I do agree with that. And you know, they were talking about the backgrounds for Fastos and Thena and Druig, and we also touched on that, like how we have all of these questions about the characters, and even the same thing with Kingo. We kind of had the same criticism of his character. So I would say I do agree with like a lot of the critiques. And I will say that I also do agree that like each of the characters felt different, and Icarus is definitely one of the best written characters in the MCU. And yeah, so what are your thoughts? I know that was like a lengthy one.
I know, and I don't think I missed anything, but there's a 90% chance I spaced out halfway through. Not going to talk about the strongest. I don't want to get into that argument. Yes, I wish Makari had more screen time, but we do see that she's the one that finds the location, which makes her very important, considering like none of that would have happened without her.
That's true.
So I think that makes her a little bit more important than people think, because I think it's overlooked.
Yeah, I just think it was such a small moment, and like this movie had so much that like unless you were really attached to Makari's character, it was something. Yeah, you're CEO of Makari, that unless you were like super attached to Makari's character towards the end, it's like something that's like you wouldn't remember. But I do agree, like even I didn't remember that like she's the one who found the location. Like she was like, it was her who did find the location of Tiamat. So in that way, like she added to the development of the plot further. That's true. That is very true. I think it's just like we wanted to see like more of her play in to the dynamics with the other Eternals, because even in the flashbacks, like with the flashbacks, we did see like Icarus in the flashbacks. We did see Cersei in the flashbacks. We did see Ajax in the flashbacks. Like we don't really get to see, like we saw Druig also in the flashbacks. Like he had his moment, right? And we saw Thena have her moment too. And with Fastos, like he also had his own specific flashback. Like each of these characters, like they had their own flashbacks, but Makari was really the only one where there wasn't a flashback centered about her. It was in relation to Druig when they were in there. So I think that's what maybe Makari was missing, was just like one flashback scene that pertains specifically to her character. I think
I would like to see more about maybe how people around her, like the humans, start to learn ASL,
right,
to interact.
Yeah,
but personality wise, I think we do see, especially in the flashback scene, when she is talking about stealing things, I do think we see how cunning she can be.
Yeah,
she's very sneaky. She obviously does not care about stealing. She's a collector. She's just, and she gets bored quickly, which again is another reason why I had headcanon her as ADHD.
Right. Yeah, I think it was just like I want to see a flashback to understand her, I guess, her perspective.
Yeah, we don't really see her perspective.
That's what I think. That's what was missing. Is because with Fastos, we saw his perspective. With Kingo, his perspective was explained. With Sprite, Druig, like all of their perspectives were shown, except for even with Gilgamesh. Like we didn't see his perspective, but then he died off at the end. So And like Dina had her own thing going on, so I think her perspective was just to stick with the Eternals that were right. But like with Makkari, like we did not see her perspective, and I think that's what was missing from the film.
We definitely need to see more of her like connection with humans. Like, what does she think of them? Does she like them?
Yeah, I think
and relationship with like other Eternals.
Yeah, I think that's what was missing from Makkari's character. Okay,
basically, I want a Makkari spinoff, is what I'm saying, guys.
Honestly, I think Makkari deserves a spinoff way more than Druig.
Because we don't get as much content of Makkari.
Yeah. If Druig was to have a spinoff, it should be a Druig and Makkari spinoff. Like, I'm okay with a Druig and Makkari spinoff, but I think Makkari should get her own spinoff, is more deserving of one than Druig is, if that makes sense. And Makkari, I also think spinoff. Yeah, and if we're talking about like spinoff projects for the Eternals, I think Dina and Makkari are two Eternals I would love to see in spinoff projects. And if they want to do like a mini series, like I think Druig and Kingo can have a really interesting like mini series sort of, because their personality, like they have like their moments of like that one moment where like Kingo, the movie star, like they had a very interesting some things too. Yeah. If they were to like put up different like team of different Eternals for a spinoff, I think Druig, Makkari, and Kingo would be a really like interesting trio to give the spinoff to. Kind of like they did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but with those three, I think that would be like a really interesting spinoff to have. Okay, last one. My thoughts about Eternals is that it's a masterpiece. Chloe Zhao did a really great job on filming. They did such a great job on making the script, on how Druig wanted to save the Aztecs but couldn't, was just great. If I was to critique it, I would say I would love to see again more of Makkari, and they shouldn't have killed off Ajak. But Salma says she has a contract, so let's see what happens to her. Yeah, so I think like everyone has the same thoughts on like more Makkari. Like they love Makkari, but they just like the fact that they loved her is like they wanted to see more of her. And then I don't have an issue with Ajak being killed off, but I think it goes back to what we were saying about like the prequels. Like we need to understand like Ajak's like perspective. Like that
we need to understand, because she remembers everything. Which another reason that sparks the whole, can Thena get past the mind mirror or something? Because
is it that Ajak remembers everything, or is it that she's always told at the start of the cycle? Because that's what we don't know, right? I don't think,
because I feel like that would be too much.
Yeah, she's like, all she says that like she's been serving Arishem, but it's like she could just be like reset and then just told everything, or she could like see her memories again. Like that's what we don't know. Like that's why we need that Ajak prequel.
We need an Ajak, like we need a whole movie for Ajak. We just need to know more about her, because she has like the most history.
Yes, exactly, as an Eternal. Yeah, and like again, like Druig with the Aztecs and the Makkari, I agree with all of that, and like filming and the script. I think the issues with Eternals comes down to sometimes maybe the writing of certain characters, and the script was done pretty well in terms of like the plot, but I think there were like slight loopholes and stuff, maybe because of the writing. And this is my one critique with Eternals, is one of my larger critiques is the writing team. I want to say most of the writers were white, and Chloe Zhao was the only person of color to write the script, which can be a little bit, which did lead to some like falls of the movie, like with the way Kingo's character was written, because normally South Asians are stereotyped to be that funny guy, and Kingo sort of exuded that stereotype throughout the film. So like it might just because Kumail Nanjiani is like, you know, a comedian by trade, so they probably just wanted him to also be telling the jokes because he's a natural. But it's just that like when you've seen like South Asians be like, they're always the funny guy in like movies and stuff, and you saw that with Kingo, it was a little bit like jarring, I think, for some people. So like that was like probably my like one critique with Eternals, like the writing team for next time, like there should definitely be a little bit more diversity there, because I think a few people also said like with the scene that was set with the Aztecs, like certain parts of it were slightly inaccurate. So that's what also I heard were some critiques of Eternals that I would agree with. But yeah, overall, like I agree. So do you have anything to add?
Not on that. I'm agreeing with most of it. Right.
Yeah. I think just more of Makkari. Okay, So my final thoughts on Eternals. Do you want to go first, actually?
Okay. So obviously, Makari spinoff,
Mhm.
Ajax movie. We need to know
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I'm very interested now that sadly Gilgamesh is gone, how Thena is going to deal with her mind. I can never
Mad
say
Weary,
it.
yeah.
Thank you. Because like she doesn't have that person who's helped her for all those years, and no one
Yeah.
else really knows how to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that and if they can figure it out to like stop it in a way.
Right.
Very excited for sequels, possibly. And praise Chloe because she's amazing.
Yeah. I agree. Like, we definitely need like some of the Eternals to get spin-off projects and also cameo. I think what I'm most excited to see with Eternals is how it connects to the rest of the MCU and see that crossover between Eternals and Avengers, or just Eternals and some of our favorite characters. That's one of the things that like most excites me about this movie is I wonder how it'll connect to the rest of the MCU. And overall, it's definitely now my favorite Marvel movie. Like, there's just so much to love about this movie. And I do understand the criticisms, and I do also understand why some people may not have enjoyed this movie too much. Um, and so it's a very divisive movie, but I think once Eternals connects to the MCU and more people watch the movie, I think this movie will age really well. Like, I think more people will be like, okay, if they connect it well to the rest of the MCU, like, I think this movie would age pretty well. So yeah, those are my last thoughts. Well, that's all we have. Thank you for spending the last 2.5 hours with me talking about Eternals. I will go through all of this footage that we have and upload everything. And so yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Ella. Check out Ella on all of her accounts. I will link those all in the description. And thank you all for joining me on Eternally Obsessed and the first official episode, first two, I guess. So yeah, if you want to listen to Eternally Obsessed, it's currently on Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor. Make sure to follow the TikTok and make sure to follow the Instagram. And if you want to be featured as a guest on this podcast, you can fill out the Google form that will be linked in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Ella, for being a guest. And yeah, have a good day, everyone. Okay.